So I think that the biggest question that I get in terms of listing presentation is not so much like what do we offer as a company, but more of like format. Like how do I go about, how do I use the tools that we have and best present in a way that makes sense to the client and doesn't keep them listening to you for 4 hours. Because if you're presenting for long periods of time, I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's not a good fit. It's not the way you wanna do it. Like I wanna try to do listing presentations within an hour's time. Do me a favor, go outside. Thank you. So in terms of format, what I always talk about in a listing presentation is 4 pillars of success. The 4 pillars of success are pretty basic. This is gonna drive me nuts with this, so hold on. Can you push the buttons when I just tell you? It's just literally that.
Just listen forward.
Yeah. So the first pillar is price. And by the way, I'm going to go quick through this because I want to make sure I give you a lot of different talking points. The first pillar is price. There are 4 of them. It's price. It's, now I'm blanking out. Price, condition, marketing, negotiation. And I'm going to talk about what we as Coldwell Banker do differently on each of those points and how it could position you properly in the marketplace. So when you talk about price, everybody understands that price is an important factor when you're talking about selling homes. So that's like a no-brainer. But what most people think is that that's our decision to decide on price. But that's not accurate. And if we treat it as such, if we move forward and make it so that we're the decision makers on price, what inevitably is going to happen is people will decide against you because you're telling them the right price. Because you're going to have some other jerky agent that's going to walk in and tell them whatever price they want to hear, and then all of a sudden, like now it's a situation where you're not going to get a listing because you're doing right by the seller, and that other person is essentially buying the listing. And I'm going to tell you, in today's market, it's a very easy thing to do and succeed. Because prices are going so high, it's so extreme that like you could tell them a crazy price, and it's not so crazy today. You could hit that. The next thing is condition. Condition of the house, historically speaking, is always something that the sellers give to us. Like, here's the house that you're selling. Maybe it's a hoarder house and you got to do some work to try to get it straightened out. Maybe it's, in perfect condition, like it's somewhere in between. But the truth of it is like historically speaking, condition is always on the seller. So the first 2 pillars, is price, condition. Both of those are seller pillars. They're seller decisions. They make the decision on what the price is. They make the decision on what the condition of their home is going to be. The next thing is marketing. Marketing should be the reason that they select a realtor. Like, that's the number one thing that you choose in terms of a broker is what the marketing is going to be. Because without marketing, like that's the reason they hire us. The 4th pillar, if you wouldn't mind hitting it, is negotiation. Negotiation is the other thing that we control. So the marketing, when you're going through a listing presentation, I'm going to spend most of the time, maybe not today in this session because I want you guys to learn some talking points that I find useful, but most of the time that I spend with a seller, I'm going to spend on marketing. And I'm going to spend a decent amount of time talking about marketing, how to give yourself an advantage on marketing and all that. But I am going to talk about each pillar so you see how I would organize this. And I will tell you, I'm not walking into a seller's house with this presentation. I'm just not. Like this is really to help you guys learn. But when I walk into a seller's house for years and years and years, I used to have this like formal presentation that I would put together, and it was all like written out, printed out, and I'd come in with brochures and all these different things. And then I had a good friend of mine's parents who I thought were gonna list with me. They didn't list with me, and they didn't list with me because their maid of honor was also a real estate agent, and they knew him for 40 years, and yada, 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 you know the story. So they wound up going with them, but they came back to me and they said, listen, we know we didn't go with you, and we're really sorry that we're not going with you, but you were the best person for the job. Like what you said, everything you said, it makes sense. Like you were definitely the best person for the job. However, we want to give you a gift essentially to help you out moving forward. And I said, okay. And they said, here. And they gave me everybody's presentation of all of my competitors that they interviewed. And there was like 5 of them. And so I was like, wow. And I was looking through, it really was a good gift. Like, it was helpful. So And I think that, I mean, after losing that listing, I think I went 15 in a row or something like that, 16 in a row. I didn't lose a listing after that because it helped me kind of realize what I needed to do differently to stand out of the crowd. And that to me was more helpful than the listing itself, like, is the truth of it. So if you wouldn't mind, what we're gonna talk about, and this is I'm gonna keep rapid fire with the clicks. So alignment is probably the most important thing we could talk about to start a listing presentation. You hear me talk about alignment a lot. I think it's a really great word in this industry that we have to like think this way. So if you wouldn't mind clicking, you could just click through all of them. So price, condition, marketing, negotiation. Again, sellers, us. Here's the thing about alignment that I want you to kind of teach a seller right from the start. Everybody thinks, every seller thinks that the market's amazing, so I'm gonna get top dollar regardless of, you know, any person I go with. Well, yeah, the market is amazing, but I'm gonna tell you right now, if you list your house with me, there's not even a question I'm gonna get you a higher percentage than the next person. There's no doubt in my mind I'm gonna do that. And there's reasons for that. Some of it's marketing, some of it's negotiation, some of it is just general savvy and trying to help, you know, get them to that top dollar. And if anybody thinks differently, like, you know, I'm gonna show them why. And so we're gonna talk about some of that. But let's talk about like alignment first. When you think about alignment, I want you to think about this, and I'm gonna go through each of them. Let's assume that you have an amazing house condition-wise. It's in a great location, it's an awesome house, like everything is redone, top to bottom, perfect scenario, condition. The marketing, you basically put this listing on Times Square. Like it's everywhere, the marketing's amazing. Negotiation, you have the best negotiator in the history of time negotiating for you. All of these things are in alignment, but the price is $1 million overpriced. It's not gonna sell. Doesn't matter what you do with all these other things, it's not gonna sell. The same is true, let's just say the price is perfect. Well, if the price is perfect, but there's a leaking oil tank in the front yard, and the house is falling over condition-wise, but everything else seems great. We're marketing it great, you know, the negotiation's in line. The first three things, by the way, I always put negotiation last on purpose because the first three things have to be in alignment to even get to negotiation. There is no negotiation unless those three things align. So when you're talking about, now that's a conditional issue. A lot of people don't want to buy a leaking tank in the front yard. They don't know what the risk is going to be for the buyer. So that's a condition problem. Marketing is the same thing. You can have an awesome price, the condition of the home could be amazing, but the problem is like if nobody knows about it, if it's just like, you know, a secret listing, you're not going to sell the house for top dollar. Those three things have to be in alignment to even get to negotiation. When you get to negotiation, then it's a skill set, I believe, on the agent themselves. And you could argue company as well, which we're going to get to, especially for the people that are newer in real estate. How do you leverage, you know, if you don't have a million different things that you've done negotiation-wise? We'll talk about that. So let's talk about price. And I know that, like, historically speaking, where's OT? OT, I'm gonna shout you out a couple times in this if you don't mind. So historically speaking, everybody's the same on price, meaning that there's nothing we could do differently brokerage-wise to give our clients an advantage on price. And for that reason, what tends to happen long-term is people think that like, oh, whoever gives me the best price naturally loves my home the most and they're gonna do the best job marketing-wise, and it's all nonsense, we know that, but that's what happens. And many times, like for years, you guys who have been with me for a while, you've heard me say like, don't put yourself between a bullet and a target on price. Like don't take a hard stance on this is the only price that I'm willing to put it out at, because especially in today's market, you're gonna lose. Now the flip side of that is you don't want an overpriced listing. None of us do, especially in today's market. To have a listing that's sitting on the market for long periods of time, it's like a reflection on you just as much as it is the seller in the house. So for price, like how do we get around that? And I actually think that Coldwell Banker created this amazing tool specifically for that. So we're gonna talk about pricing strategies. You can hit the next slide. So the first strategy is mass exposure. I'm just going to keep giving you the nod. So mass exposure is exactly what it sounds like. So we're going to put it on the MLS. We're going to put it on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. We're going to put it on all the different portal sites. We're going to put it on Google. We're going to do Instagram and Facebook ads. We're going to do open houses. We're going to do a video potentially on YouTube. We're going to put it out to the masses, shout it out through a megaphone. Anybody who will listen, anybody who cares about the marketplace is going to know about this house. Okay, it's a good approach. I don't have a problem with that approach. And I think that I was a Bergdorf guy, anybody who worked for Bergdorf back in the day, like this was the approach. Like this was like, you never take a pocket listing, you never, take exclusives, like you put it out as mass exposure because mass exposure is what's gonna guarantee you the most money for the seller. We've all heard that before, anybody who's been doing real estate for more than 5 minutes. So the thought process of this is an auction house. Is we're getting it in front of as many people as we possibly can auction house wise, and we're trying to get the bids to bid up. Like that's a great strategy in terms of real estate. It's what we all know and love. So the thing is like especially in today's market, we get all these buyers and they're all going after the limited inventory we have. That strategy works. If the goal is the highest price, that's an awesome strategy. Lights reports are something that I send out to you quarterly at this point. I want to show you how powerful a lights report is because when you're dealing with mass appeal and mass exposure, I should say, the lights report kind of tells the whole story that you need to tell because one of the problems that sellers have, especially in today's market, is in their mind, they're thinking, well, everybody's getting here in terms of the amount of money they're getting for a house. So I have to price my house here because otherwise, like I'm leaving money on the table, but that's not accurate. So I want you to focus on a couple of things with the lights report, please. The red and the blue. So red, first of all, this is just the bottom of a lights report. This happens to be Maplewood. I just did this, less than a month ago. So the top group, 313 homes, and this is every home that's sold in Maplewood for the last 12 months, sold at 109%. That represents 85% of the marketplace. So I want you to think about this, 109%. That means 85% of the marketplace was able to rely on the market to get them more money. And more money, 9% on the average sales price in Maplewood is a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about the difference of $699 to $770. It's a big amount of money. So when you think about it in that price point, in the 6s and the 7s, $25,000 increments is the next buyer pool. Sounds fair? So $25,000 increments, this is jumping up several buyer pools. Like just with the market alone, you don't even have to do anything. Why I say that is you could lean into the market in Maplewood right now. You don't have to even think about it. You lean into the market and the market is going to reward you because it's proven statistically that 85% of the houses are selling 9% over asking price. Don't fight the market on price. What you need to do is get the auction room to be full. When you get the auction room to be full, naturally the price will skyrocket. It's a great strategy to try to get people to price it correctly. And by the way, this DOM and sales price to original list price is such a crucial thing to point out to a seller because you say to a seller, listen, the only thing that could hurt you in today's market is time on the market. That's the worst thing for you. You don't want time on the market. Look, if you want to be at 109%, you're selling in the first 2 weeks. The second you drop down to 30 days, 37 days in this case, you're immediately dropping to 96%. You're giving up 13% by an extra 15 days on the market or whatever it is. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money in this particular case. So you have to get them to understand that the worst thing that they could do is overprice their house. That alone, and what I say to a seller, I'm being dead honest, is what I say to a seller is I say, listen, I know you're interviewing other people. I understand that. And I'm sure people are going to come in and tell you all sorts of crazy things on price. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to buy your listing on price. And the reason why is because I care about your interests. And statistically speaking, you can look at the market and the market will prove to you, please, go right ahead. The market will prove to you that what I'm saying is correct. Lean into the market, 85% of sellers have. And by the way, most of these people were our sellers, is a good point to bring up as well, and we'll get to that. But that to me is all you have to show them. I never have a seller, very rarely I should say, do I have a seller argue that point, especially when the statistics are this high. It proves to them that days on market is the enemy. The next thing I want to show you is like the whole thought process of letting the bidders fight each other. That's what mass appeal is. But that's not the only strategy. And I think that most people, most agencies, brokerages, whatever you want to call them, can only go to that. Can only go to mass appeal. That's the only, they could go to other things, but I'm going to explain why they can't do it like us. So please, the next thing is, by the way, this is just to show you, days on market's the enemy. The more days on market, the worse it is. Number 2, CB exclusive. So everybody could take an exclusive. Every single company that's sold real estate could take an exclusive. But not everybody can take an exclusive like we can. And I know some of you are like, yeah, they can, why not? Well, the thing is this, with the size and scale that we have an undue advantage. We have an advantage because if I own Michael Pennisi Realty and I'm my individual agent and I take an exclusive, I've effectively taken a pocket listing. It's my listing, nobody else knows about it, it's up to me and I sell it and blah, blah, blah. And that's not in the best interest of a seller. It's not. And that's one of the things that we historically have always learned is like never take pocket listings because that's like self-serving, that's not helping the seller. And I think that some people that hear, even in this room maybe that have heard me talk about exclusives think like, well, I learned not to do that because exclusives are self-serving to the brokerage. That's not true. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what I mean why that's not true. So for starters, one of the things that we have differently, if you go to the next slide, is scale. We have all of these offices all over the tri-state area. Like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but we just bought one of the largest brokerages in New York City, Warburg. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. That's like, historically speaking, one of the #1 luxury realtors, luxury brokerages in New York City. We own them now. They're partners with us. Big situation in terms of like helping us with market share in New York City and everywhere else. So we have offices, and I want you to think about just this area, forget about like all of the tri-state area. In just this area, we have an office in Maplewood, we have an office in Montclair, we have an office in Livingston, we have a Union office, we have a Short Hills office, we have a Summit office, we have, Vicky's the manager of Summit, so thank you for coming. We have Westfield offices, 2 in Westfield. We have offices all over this area. In our office alone, we have 150 plus agents. So when you think about like all of the offices that we have and collective market share, Coldwell Banker absolutely crushes the market from a market share perspective in all of Essex County, #1 with a bullet, #1 in Union County, like not even close. I mean, in Somerset County, in Morris County, in all the counties in the surrounding area, we're #1. So what does that mean? Well, from a seller's perspective, what #1 means is we represent approximately 25 to 30% of the market. In this area, we're 30% market share. Congratulations to you guys because you're awesome. But knowing that we represent such a high market share, I just want you to think about what that means. That means if you think about that whole auction room, just us alone, just Coldwell Banker, means 1/3 of that room is filled. So why is that relevant? Why does that matter? And the answer is basically like when you talk about an auction room being full, the goal is to price it under where you believe it belongs. When the room is not full, you have to build in a premium for negotiation because the room's not full. So again, why does this matter to you guys? Well, I want you to think about that seller. OT is this is where I'm going to point to you. OT had a listing on Wyoming. I don't know if you guys saw it. I don't think, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we get that listing if it wasn't for the strategy that I'm about to talk about. We went in and they met with a bunch of heavy hitting agents and they said, everybody came in with their marketing plan. Marketing plan is great, don't get me wrong. And by the way, I think we win on marketing. But what we did differently is they wanted to sell in June and they had some time to sell their house. So what we did was I said, why don't we take a different strategy here? Why don't you utilize, we have a program called Exclusive Look, which basically is an in-house, like internal MLS system. When we take a listing at Coldwell Banker, we will take that listing, we'll put it into our internal MLS system, and it's going to shoot out to thousands of agents in the marketplace. So yes, you could go on the MLS, and I'm all for going on the MLS, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. If that's what you want, awesome, let's do that. But here's the reason you might not want to. You guys have, I'm going to call it a conditional issue. The condition is they didn't want to close right away. They wanted to close in the future. So God bless you. So for those people that wanted to close in the future, this is like optimal because we could say, hey, listen, well, what if we were able to kind of tease the market and see if we could get you your top price? Because when they talked to us, the price that they were talking to us about, we were like, ew, I don't know if we want to put it on the market for that price. That's a really high number. Like, we don't think we could get that number. But we still wanted the listing, and we knew that if we fought with them over price, it wasn't going to end well for us. So what we did was, we said, you know what? If you want to test the market, why don't we test the market as an exclusive? We'll put it out to all Coldwell Banker. We'll put it out to a third of the marketplace. It's not going to add up days on market. It's not going to be on Zillow, and it's not going to work against you to all the things that we just talked about. We're also not going to go out and we're not going to spend crazy amounts of money marketing it. All we're going to do is leverage our brokerage and see if any buyers that are sitting around in this market, by the way, keep in mind, we have no idea what the market's going to be moving forward. We think it's going to be good, but I've never seen a better market than right now. I don't know if you guys have, but I certainly haven't. So when you're thinking about that, like even 2006, we had more inventory in 2006. Like there's no houses on the market. So you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, wouldn't you want to take advantage of today's market? I know these other brokers are telling you, why don't you wait till 5 months from now, 4 months from now to put it on the market so you don't rack up days on market and you don't have that condition of a future closing and all that other crap. Like you don't have to think about that with us. Put it on the market as an exclusive. Let's see what happens. We got the listing. Congrats. But we not only got the listing, but what happened was interesting. We put it on as an exclusive. We got some interest, but we didn't get necessarily like everybody that they wanted. And they said, you know what? We actually think we're ready to just go to market. Let's just go to market. We did. You guys sold it for a big number, I know that. So the point is like the exclusive is not what sold the house necessarily. The exclusive is what got us the listing. And that's the kind of like the thought process. And by the way, there are going to be, and this is the thing that Mary Kano I love, but Mary Kano and I have had this discussion time and time again. Mary's the executive officer for Nice Jar, the board. So Mary is like, to exclusives, like she just doesn't believe in them. And what I said to Mary that I found interesting is she said, well, what do you do? How do you tell a seller that it's top dollar? I said, first of all, Mary, I just want you to understand something. That's not our job, is to get them top dollar. And she looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I said, it's not. Our job is to help them achieve their goals. Because not every seller wants top dollar. I know that sounds weird, but for some sellers, what they care about is they want to sell yesterday. Some of it's time, some of it's terms, some of it's just a million different things. It just depends on what it is. I said, but let's talk about dollars for a second, because I think that matters to most sellers. When you talk about top dollar, my thought process on top dollar is okay, if we take it as an exclusive, ultimately, I believe knowledge is power. They have more upfront knowledge before they hit the market. I don't know, you don't have to raise hands, but there are plenty of people in this room that have taken an exclusive. Seller gets 4 or 5 offers from our office or from the surrounding offices, and then they say, I think we want to go to market instead. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. What's wrong with that? My job is not to restrict the flow of traffic. It's not to do any of that. That's not the point of this. It's to try to get them more information up front. They can make an educated decision for themselves. Now I'm going to tell you, and this is the argument that I made with Mary, is I've seen this happen several times over where we've taken an exclusive, we've gotten 4 or 5 offers or however many offers. The sellers chose to go to market and got less money on the market. How does that happen? It happens because when those buyers were putting in offers, you were kind of dangling over their head this whole idea of, you know what, you don't have the competition of the rest of the market. So they are going to a premium, they're paying a premium to avoid that competition. I'm not saying that this should be your go-to move on every single listing. That's not the point of this. What I'm trying to say is if you're not leveraging this properly, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, because it's definitely an advantage we have in the market, and it's an advantage to your sellers. In many instances, this is a really good way to get your sellers more money. So just don't discount it on general principle. What is a pricing committee? Anybody use marketing committees or pricing committees? Don't everybody raise your hand at once. All right, so what I want to say about this is sometimes you have a seller that they want to list with you, they're happy with listing with you, but they're like nervous about price. And I never want a seller to not sign a listing agreement with me because of price. So I'm gonna say something that sounds insane, but I'm serious when I say this. Let's just say the house is $400,000 and they're deciding, should it be 400, should it be 425, should it be 500, whatever. They're in that price point. What I will say to them is I'll say like, listen, I could tell that pricing is something that is a challenge for you and you want more information on price. I understand that. So I'm gonna make a suggestion. We're the market leader in this area. We do more business than anybody else. And I know in addition to myself, there are several other top agents in my office that do business in your specific neighborhood. I'm sure it would be helpful for you to get all the information and to actually get their opinion on price. And I'm willing to actually do that. That's a service that we provide. So what we would do is, let's forget about, for the purpose of the documentation, we're gonna put $1 million for the listing price on this listing. Because it's not going anywhere. It's just an internal document. All it is saying that you've decided to work with me. You've made a commitment to work with me and you're giving me the ability to go out and get a marketing committee together. Because we don't do marketing committees without signed documentation. If you do that, now what you're doing is you've gotten over that mental hurdle for them and you've gotten them to decide, because by the way, we're putting $1 million on the document. They got nothing to worry about. If they sold it for $1 million, they do a backflip. So they're no longer concerned about you trying to beat them up on price. What you're doing is you're providing a service to them to make sure that you get them top dollar and to make sure that they feel comfortable with the pricing that we're going to come on with. Does that make sense? And by the way, for anybody in this room that gets a phone call from somebody else in this room about a pricing or marketing committee, if you don't go on that pricing and marketing committee, you're insane. For two reasons. One, you should be helping one another because it's a big deal. And two, we're in a market of limited inventory. You get a sneak peek at a house before it comes on the market. If you have buyers in that particular range, you have inside information that you could work off of, and it's already a signed listing, so you don't even have to worry about the fact that it's, that you're giving out information. I would have a conversation with the listing agent to make sure that they're okay with you talking about it. Don't be stupid about that. But my point is, and don't post it on Facebook. It's got to be internal. But my point is that's a really big advantage in today's market. Take advantage of it. So let's talk about condition. By the way, the two pillars that we started with, I talked about price already. I didn't get into specifics about price because I don't have a house in mind. But for condition, this is another thing that historically speaking, brokerages in general could never help anybody on condition. Condition was the condition. You just deal with what you deal with. Maybe you get a stager to come in. That's something that you could do. But beyond that, the condition of the house is the condition of the house. Then Coldwell Banker came around and said, what about Real Vitalize? So Real Vitalize, what I would say to a seller, I'm going to go through a discussion with you so you understand it. I'm sitting in front of a seller, they're interviewing 3 or 4 different agents, whoever it may be, or different brokerages, and I say Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I got to tell you, your house is awesome. It's a beautiful home. It's a great location. I'm really excited about marketing this house. My job is essentially to give you the best information possible so you can make cost-effective changes to the house to get yourself top dollar if that's what you want. So one thing that I would suggest you guys think about is updating the kitchen. I'm making something up. It could be any issue. Is updating the kitchen. And I say if you dump $25,000 or whatever it is into the kitchen, I really believe that you could get X, whatever X may be. And only tell them that if it's honestly an addition, something that will help them. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it. But usually there's something in a house. There's a pink bathroom, there's a kitchen, there's staging needs, there's a front door that should be replaced. There's always something, painting, handyman work, whatever it is. So the point is whatever that is, I would point that out to them. Now, if you're at any other brokerage for the most part, and you say that, the seller says to you, that's an awesome idea, but you know what? We just don't have the money to do that. At Coldwell Banker, not a problem. We'll write you a check so you could make those changes to your house. And you pay us back at closing, and there's no interest charged, and there's no, what is it called? Credit reports that we run. We don't put a lien on the property. You do have to sign an agreement, but that's something that, just so you know, we're going to give you the money. How much could I borrow? You could borrow up to what you pay us on the listing side commission. Like, that to me is such an easy conversation to have. They're not thinking to themselves like, wow, this person's like playing games with me. They're thinking, whoa, this person's gonna give me the money to help my house. Think about the world we live in. This is this HD TV world that everybody and their mother wants to flip a house. Like, they could flip their own house. They could use our money to do it and basically get more in today's market because every person in here knows that turnkey sells. Think about the advantage that gives you over every other brokerage in the history of time. Like, all these other people are talking about like, oh, I'll do an open house and I'll do this and I'll do that. And you're like, I'll give you money to get more money for your house. Like, it's a different conversation. Use it. What I would do, if you don't mind flipping it, is I'm just going to give you some examples. We'll do staging, painting, renovations. We'll pull oil tanks if need be. How many people are stuck in a situation where they can't afford to pull an oil tank, but they know that that's going to be costly to their bottom line? We could do that. Landscaping, handyman services. There's so many things that we could do to give them an advantage. This could be the difference of getting a listing or not. If you're not speaking to it, why not? Like, it's such an easy thing to use. I'm done on condition. I hope you get the point. Let's talk about marketing, and this is to me where the real meat is. Please. All right, so I'm going to go through what I would talk about in terms of listing concierge. I understand that there's some people in this room that have relationships with their own photographer. Some people are just like, I have a process in place and this is the process I always use, and I get all that. But I'm going to tell you this. I've been on a lot of listing appointments. And I'm going to actually take it to a different level. I've been on a lot of recruiting appointments. And every recruiting appointment that I go on, I ask the question. I say, you get a listing. What do you do for your listing? What does Remax do to help you? What does Keller Williams do to help you? What does Compass do to help you? What does this company, whatever the company it is? And I always ask the question. I say, like, what are they doing to help you actually market your listing? And I get a lot of really bad answers. Really bad answers. I get, well, I take the listing and I put it on Zillow. Then what? Well, professional photography. And I'm like, okay. Every once in a while, I'll get just listed and just sold cards. Like, okay. I get a lot of people that tell me I put it on Facebook. Awesome. Like, on your Facebook page, do you promote it? What do you do? Well, sometimes I'll do pay-per-click. It depends on the listing. Like, I get really bad answers. And the truth of it is that's the same exact push. Oh, I get the 900 different websites. I don't know why 900 became the number, but a lot of people use 900. So I always ask this question, and like, the answers are really pitiful. So what do you think that they're coming in and saying when they're on a listing presentation? The same thing that they're telling me. Like, maybe they just fluff it up a little bit, but like, it's garbage. Like, most people are not coming in with an actual marketing plan. In 10 minutes, you could go through a marketing plan with Listing Concierge that blows them out of their mind. So I'm just gonna go through this real quick. Like, yeah, we're gonna take professional photography. Everybody's gonna do professional photography. If your agent doesn't do professional photography, don't hire them. But here's the thing, professional photography is only as good as what you use it for. What are you gonna do with the professional photography? What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a custom website for your house. We're also gonna send out a just listed e-flyer that's gonna go out to all of the buyers that I have that are working in this area. We're gonna do a property tour, so like, it's branded, it looks nice, it makes sure that like when people go and look at your house, they're gonna see a nice image of it. Print advertising. A lot of people think that print advertising is obsolete, but here's the thing, I have no idea where your buyer is gonna come from. Your buyer might come from the next door neighbor, your buyer might come from internet ads, your buyer might come from the Wall Street Journal. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a full color ad in the Wall Street Journal and in the New York Times. Both of those publications also feed out to their online sites and all what have you. And probably something that's most important about this one particular thing is it's the New York City metro area. So it's not gonna go out to just New Jersey, it's gonna go out to all the buyers that are looking in all of New York City. We're gonna do a TV commercial. We have our own show that we run on Channel 11 on Sunday mornings. We're gonna put it out there. We're also gonna feed it to YouTube so I can push it out on Facebook and push it out on all the different sites that are out there, LinkedIn, what have you. We're gonna do color brochures. When people come to the house, you want something tangible that they can walk home with and they can look at the rest of the day while they're soaking in whether they're gonna put in an offer or not. We're gonna produce those. We're gonna put together a mobile brochure. One of the things, historically speaking, that has always been a problem in real estate is people do drive-bys. They drive past the house and we used to do those little stupid things like the containers where you pull a flyer, forget all that. They all get wet. It's just like not a good way of marketing. What we do differently is we use today's technology, we use geofencing. We put a fence around the house, and it's an invisible fence, but we put a fence around the house, and basically anybody that's within that area that wants more information will A, get a mobile brochure because we have a custom website produced for you, and B, all of their information is going to get pulled from their cell phone and sent to me because we don't let any leads slide. We make sure we follow up with every single person that wants information about the house because that person driving by that wants the mobile brochure might be the buyer for your house. So we make sure we take that from them and follow up with them. We're also going to do, and by the way, this is a gold package. I'm going to do, in terms of just listed and just sold cards. Everybody does just listed and just sold cards, but not all just listed and just sold cards are the same. Like what we do differently, I don't know about you, but I hate solicitations. I get solicitations in the mail. It's like rip, throw it, credit card companies, rip, throw it in the garbage. Like with this, it comes in and it looks like a wedding invitation. It's a nice silver packaging. People get it. And I can tell you right now, it has gotten us a lot of business this year. It has gotten buyers that have come out because they saw those advertisements and they said, whoa, like, okay, I'm interested. They've showed it, think of sellers in the neighborhood that have introduced it to potential buyers that want to live in the same neighborhood as them. That works. Targeted online advertising, where most people stop, most companies stop is here. They do Zillow, they do Realtor.com, they do Trulia. And the thing about those is not all companies are built the same. Because when you do Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, and all of those portal sites, here's the big difference. At every company, you have to pay for space. They don't tell you that, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. You don't realize that you have to pay for space. So yes, you could be on Zillow, but where are you tracking on Zillow? Are you at the top? Think about ad placement in a supermarket. Where do you fit on the shelf? It's the exact same thing with Zillow. The same thing that they do is ad placement. You pay for what's called featured and branded. Featured and branded means you're going to show up higher on search results. You're going to stay there longer. You're also going to be branded, so the leads that come in off of that are going to feed to us. Whereas at other brokerages, they're paying for that space, potentially. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, because it's the individual agent that's doing that. This is a corporate-based plan that we're making sure that you're getting that ad placement. Think about this, and why does any of this matter to you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller? Because when you're on Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com, and you show up higher on search results, you're going to get more clicks. The more clicks you get, the more potential buyers are going to see your house, the more potential showings you have, the more showings, the more potential offers. It's a domino effect. The more offers, the more money. Doesn't that matter? Of course it does. That's what you're hiring us for, is to market your home. So when you think about that, when you think about Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com, that's awesome that we're on there, and that's awesome that we're spending the money to make sure you get better placement on there, but it's not good enough. Why is it not good enough? Because the average buyer who's looking in today's market is spending somewhere between 10 to 20% of their online time looking at those sites. That's not where they're spending most of their time. They're spending most of their time on Facebook, on Instagram, on all the sports channels. Think ESPN, NFL.com, all the news channels, especially in today's world. Think about MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Huffington Post, Forbes. There's all these different sites that we go on. That's up here. That's targeted online advertising. We are going to take it to a different level than any other brokerage out there in terms of making sure your listing shows up in more places. And it's not just generic ads. It's your listing. It's literally the pictures of your listing with clicks for more information. And anybody who comes in off of that goes directly back to me because I'm the best person suited to answer the questions for your house because I'm your listing agent. Assumptive close. So in terms of the last piece, which is seller update, one of the biggest complaints that people have this is in any industry, but it's especially true for real estate. One of the biggest complaints that sellers have is they want to make sure that they're being communicated with properly. And one of the things that we do the worst, not necessarily us in this room, but as an industry, what we do the worst is communication. Well, guess what? When we do all of these things, you're going to get a seller update. It's going to be a detailed report that's going to give you every single thing we do in order, and it's going to be sent to you so you know exactly what we're doing to market your home at any given time. You could click the links. You could see how many people are actually looking at what we're putting out there. You're never going to be in the dark, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. That is a marketing plan. And by the way, I'm not finished. So what I would do differently from this, in addition to what I just talked about, I personally am doing a video for every single listing I take. Why? Because that content is going to build. And as that content builds, naturally you're going to get more and more and more listings from it. Ben Garrison's not in this room, but I'm going to use him as an example. Ben has been doing videos for his listings for years. And I've been on listing appointments with Ben, and I can tell you right now, when we walk in on a listing appointment with Ben Garrison, he goes, let me show you how many clicks I got on my last one. Let me show you how many people have saw this. Matter of fact, this last video, this is what sold, the $2 million plus house up on the hill. That was sold from Ben because people were seeing his videos. Luxury real estate, everybody in here would love to be a luxury agent. Most people. You like the price points, you like the fancy homes. Luxury real estate is all about video. That's what they care about, is video. So if you're not doing videos for your houses, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. I'm gonna spend a few extra $100 on every listing that I do to make sure I build that up. I'm gonna tell that to a seller when I'm sitting in front of them. Please. Big data. I bet you every single person in here, or most of you, has never used what I'm about to talk about, and it's such a game changer. So people understand in today's world, you have to give credit to the people that you're sitting across from. We're in an affluent area. Most of the people in this area are well educated. They understand that big data rules today. What Coldwell Banker does differently that will give you an advantage, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, please, is we have CBX. So we could actually take your home. I did it for 8 Brookside Road in Maplewood. We could take your home and we could figure out where are the most likely buyers going to come from, because Coldwell Banker's paying for this data. We could pull and figure out okay, here are the most likely buyers. Here's the profile match. Here is where we're going to target our ads online. So where everybody else, I want you to think of, I know this is a touchy subject for some, but think about cancer. Cancer long term, back in the day, what people did with cancer is it would just be radiation, or it'd be chemo or whatever. Now cancer treatment is very pinpointed. It's this is the area that we're going to trigger and go after cancer. In today's world, we don't have to just throw a bucket of paint at the wall. And what we could do differently is we could say Mr. or Mrs. Seller, when you list with me, I'm gonna make sure that we use our systems to pull the data for your house, and I'm gonna specifically go and run ads in the zip codes that are most likely to get a buyer for your house. And we're gonna run ads the way that these people react to them. Top media types, internet, that's a big thing, TV in certain instances, it depends on what it is. We could pinpoint ads in certain ways. Most of the time we're gonna do internet ads, let's just be real. But the truth of it is we could speak to that and say this is the demographic we're going after. This is who to target zip code wise. Use this if you're not. It's such an easy path because it's different from what everybody else is using and people understand it. Anybody know what Wealth Engine is? Yes. All right. So, go back. Sorry. So, Wealth Engine. If you guys have luxury real estate, give you a little pause so you guys. All right. If you have luxury real estate, Wealth Engine, I don't know if you realize this, but Coldwell Banker pays a lot of money for this. We pay to have this database. What Wealth Engine does is they put together, I read this online, I actually went on their site and did a little research on this. 500 billion data points they pull from to pull all data on the most wealthy individuals in the US, the most wealthy individuals in the world. They pull all that data. I bet you none of you guys realize this, but right now we could go in and I could pull email addresses for the top 500 executives in the area. You all have access to that right now. If you wanted to pull all sorts of data related to the most wealthy individuals in this area. Now think about that when you're trying to go out and sell one of the most expensive homes in the area. Don't you have an advantage? Of course you do. You're able to say, we could pinpoint people that these other companies don't even have any freaking idea what they're doing related to this. They don't know how to use this data. They don't have this data. We're paying for it. It's just a service that we provide. Use it. Now you're not going to go on a $250,000 listing and start talking about Wealth Engine. So use your tools wisely, get it, because they're going to look at you like you have 3 heads. But the point is you have to use what we have because we do have the best in the industry in terms of tools and services. So this slide is terrible because I was going to put something else here and I will add to it. But people know that the internet is what drives like traffic right now, and and for homes. Unique clicks on our website, on our brokerage website, we blow everybody else out of the water. So when you talk about like the Zillows of the world and the Trulias of the world and the Realtor.coms, well, ColdwellBanker.com is right on that list. We're the #1 brokerage in the world for internet, clicks. The other step that I was going to put here that I will fill this slide back in, I just couldn't find the data real quick, is we're also #1 on social media. Like the two most important things in today's world, social media and the internet, we're #1 on both. Use it. Let's talk about negotiation. So for the purpose of negotiation, what I decided to do in this is negotiation is a tough one to try to show somebody that you're good at negotiation. Market stats certainly work. I'm going to give you guys a couple slides here that will help you, hopefully. But I'm also going to talk about myself during negotiation. And I want to show you the first one has nothing to do with me. This is us. Our listings in the area since 2020. Everything in red is sold. How about that slide if you're going after a Maplewood listing? So they look at you and say, and what I say to them is I say, listen, negotiation's the fourth pillar. Negotiation matters. And when you talk about the ability to negotiate and the ability to get you top dollar, there's nobody better than me. I'm going to get you top dollar. There's no question about it. I heard years ago, I went to Seton Hall, and there was a business professor at Seton Hall. He was probably my favorite professor at Seton Hall. I loved him. And what he looked at me is he said, he used to say this quote, and it's like probably if there's anything that I took away from Seton Hall, it's this quote. It says, when you have the facts, you bang the facts. When you don't have the facts, you bang the table. And I think that the point of that is speak with conviction. You don't have to be the top agent in the history of time. Speak with conviction, speak with confidence. It matters. If you emphasize, I'm going to get it done for you. I'm going to be a fierce negotiator. I'm a pit bull when it comes to negotiation. I will do everything possible to get you top dollar and help you achieve your goals. Believe me, that resonates with them. That's important. So don't leave that out. You have to speak to that. But when it comes to negotiation, I'll say, listen, it's really hard to show you what we're able to do negotiation-wise, and prove that to you because it's not tangible. But I want to show you, nobody sells more houses in your area than we have, in the past couple of years. It's not even close. I mean, look, all of these dots are what we sold. By the way, excuse me, these are just our listings. The next slide, here's all the stuff we sold. So we cover the map. I wish these were blue personally, but we cover the map. When you think about it, when you're out there and you're trying to convince them why you, leverage our size and our team. By the way, this is just our office. This is not even all Coldwell Banker. It would be even better than this if it was Coldwell Banker. So the point of this is when you go in there, use visuals to prove your ability because it helps. There's no question it helps. The other thing that I would speak to is we've done over $1 billion of sales. My operation's done over $1 billion of sales since 2020. Nobody else is talking about that locally. Nobody, not even close. So when you're going in there and you're saying just trying to justify why us, why we, because nobody's doing it at the level that we're doing it. We're #1 with a bullet. On a personal level, I went to Seton Hall, I studied international economics, I studied in China, I studied in Florence, Italy. So I feel like I'm pretty global and well-traveled in terms of my learnings. I also studied negotiation and leadership at Harvard. And I can tell you right now, on an informal basis, on a professional basis, let's call it, I negotiate real estate every day of my life for the past 15 years. So I feel very comfortable in that forum. But you know what? On a very formal education basis, I'm not there got trained. I make sure that I give myself an advantage and give all my clients an advantage because my job is to get you what you want. And believe me, I'm going to do that better than anybody else. You have to have slides, you don't have to have Harvard or Seton Hall, you have to have slides where you're able to speak to them, where you're able to say, and by the way, I'll give you a very easy, low-hanging fruit one. Go out and get certified they have a certified negotiation expert. So I'll tell you this, it's really funny. Years ago, I was going after a $1.5 million listing in Summit. And I wanted to list it, there's no doubt. I was in fierce competition for the listing. And
couple months before that, I took a designation course. The designation course was a staging course, I'm trying to remember what the acronym was. Accredited Staging Professional. So, accredited staging professional. Listen, I barely even dress myself in the morning. Like, I have zero fashion sense when it comes to staging. Like, that's not my deal. So, you asked me what colors to pick. I have no idea, but I can find something to do it for you. So, the thing is this, like, when I walk in on a listing and I start talking about staging, I'm not a staging expert. But I'm sitting in front of somebody who wanted a staging expert. And I just so happened to have taken that class. And so I walked in the room and she was like, everything was going well in the listing presentation. I was like, I'm going to get this listing, like, internally. And then she goes, we met with another agent and they actually have a staging background. And that's the one thing about this whole situation that we feel like, we want to go into, but like, we just don't feel great about that. And I could have went with, like, bring a stager in, there's a lot of different directions to go with that. But I said to them, I said, wait a second. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't speak about this. I'm actually an accredited staging professional. She goes, are you really? I said, absolutely. I got certified in that a couple months ago. And they're like, let me tell you about staging. And the truth of it is like, believe me, we sold their house with multiple offers. Like, it wasn't an issue. I wasn't like bullshitting person. But the point is like, you have to be equipped to answer questions on the fly, and you have to know what somebody's going to care about. Like, people care about staging. People certainly care about negotiation. So go out and get certified in some of these things. You don't have to be the foremost expert in all things. I'm not telling you to be like, oh, here's the 29 things I'm an expert in. Not at all. And all of this that I'm showing you right now, I slip in conversation. It's not like, let me show you that I went to Seton Hall. No. Like, it's more of like, yeah, I know the area really well. I actually graduated from Seton Hall, so I've been here for years. Like, it's just like little comments like that just get slipped in over the course of the conversation that are game changers, because believe me, they take note of them. They realize, like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Some of you guys are individuals. Why don't you talk about your team? Like, every one of you guys in here has a team. Like, you might not view it that way, but I have a team. Beautiful lady over there. So when you talk about like the disadvantage that you may have as an individual agent, because sometimes you're going to go up against a team that has 25 people and an expert for every month. Like, and that's what they come in and sell. Well, speak to it. Say, like, you know what? Like, we actually have a social media marketing coordinator. We have an operations person. We have somebody that handles everything you might need to make sure this is a smooth transaction. Like, that's the type of stuff, like, you want to give us different titles, because believe me, we'll help you behind the scenes anyway. It's really true, it's what we'll do. But my point is like, speak to that and say, and this is what I would say that's different, is I would say, listen, there's a lot of people that will come in here and they'll tell you how big their team is. And I respect that. I don't have anything against teams. Teams are a great way to do business. I have a team myself. Like, I'll introduce you to my team and you understand what we're all about. But here's the thing about teams. What teams have become in real estate, and this is unfortunate, but it's true, is bookend selling. You get somebody that'll walk in, you'll get the closer or a big name or whoever it is. They'll walk in on day one, and they'll tell you everything that you need to hear to go with them. And then they will hand you off to a minion that's going to run around and basically, just got into real estate 2 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever, hasn't sold a percentage of the real estate that I've sold. And they're going to do all the transactional details. And then that person's going to show up, that other person's going to show back up at the closing table. And I'm not taking shots at any teams in here or any teams in the marketplace, but let's face it, that's what a lot of people do. So what I would say is, it's like, when you hire me, you get me. You're going to get me to negotiate your deal. I may have people that will help me throughout the process for showings or for open houses or what have you, but you're getting me. And that's why you hire me, because you know that you want the best professional that you can to represent you. Like, you're not going to get some random person when you sign with me. Like, if you're not having that dialogue or some variation of that dialogue, you should. Because the person, if they go to hire you and they know they're getting you, that's a big deal. And they're not thinking about that when they're listening to that person from that big team talk about all the fluffy things that they do. They're thinking like, wow, this person's like a well-oiled machine, this team. But like they're not thinking about who they're getting handed off to. They're thinking about that lead person who's crushing it and closing it. So you have to speak to that. It's an important factor. What about the rest of our team? We're a full-service company. Thank you guys for coming on. So we sat into that. We have an idea from Real Estate Title. Like, how about this? When you go out and we have an in-house, mortgage team, like every person that walks into the open house, I can get them pre-approved like this, 15 minutes over the phone. Like, speak to that stuff because it helps. It helps the seller realize that, you know what? It's not a one-stop shop. You don't just give your business to Michael Pennisi and that's it. Like, no, you have a whole team behind the scenes that are going to help you actually get top dollar for your house and make sure that we get these people, to a closing table. I'm going to give you one other example that I love to use on multiple offers, on showing the negotiation. Bear with me 1 second. So, when I say to them about multiple offers, I say, listen, I want to give you an example of how I negotiate, and it's really hard to give you an actual example, but I'm going to pull one out that I think would be useful to you. So, think about it this way. You get multiple offers, that's a great thing, it's a good start. But how do we get the best agents in the industry? Don't stop there. Like the best agents in the industry squeeze every last dollar and all the best terms out of those buyers. How do we do it? How do I do it? I can tell you right now, I've been doing this I negotiate more multiple offers than anybody in life in this area. And every single week I have 2, 3, 4 offers that I'm negotiating for the most part for the last 10 years. And what I do is I have like a tried and true email that I've built over time. And I'm going to give you one term to give you an idea. And for some of you guys, this is going to seem like basic stuff. For a seller, it's not. It's not basic stuff for a seller. So what I would say to that seller is I'd say, listen, in every single email that I put out on multiple offer, there's going to be a line that says, if your buyer is coming in with financing, please provide pre-approval letters. The next line is going to say, for all cash offers, please provide proof of funds. So, Mr. Services Seller, you might not realize this, we may or may not get cash offers. I don't know if we're going to or not. But I can tell you one thing, whether we get cash offers or we don't, that line's going to be in there. And they're going to look at me and be like, what do you mean? And I say, I'll put that in there both ways because what that's doing is it's putting every single other person, whether they're cash or not, on notice that they're competing against cash. And that little line is going to get them to be like, we don't have an advantage on financing terms. We need to have an advantage on price. And that is just one thing that I do in the course of a transaction to put more money in your pocket. But I just came up with that. And by the way, I don't have this produced. This is like something that I'd be like, off the cuff, here's an example. But like, that's an example that I would use regularly. And I would say like, just think about that. Just that one example might put an extra $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 in your pocket. Now multiply that over the course of a transaction. Who do you think is going to do a better job of putting more money in your pocket? Me or me? Like, I really believe it's me. And so those little things like that, it gives you an advantage, and people start to nod their head and start to realize, like, okay, that makes sense. This makes sense. Nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about pricing strategy. Nobody talked about doing TV commercials. Nobody talked about doing exclusive look and how we, market and get people in ahead of time to get me more information. I haven't heard anybody else talk to me about marketing committees. Like, wow, you guys use big data analytics. Nobody talked about that. Like, we're piecing together a picture that's a pretty compelling story. Like, and what I do, and I did a terrible job of this today, but what I would do in the course of that conversation is, as I go through the pillars of a sale, I'd say to them, you understand that? Does that make sense to you? And they go, yeah. Any questions about that? Like, I'm closing them every single step of the way. I'm closing them in every conversation I'm having with them because I want to know what questions you have before we get to the end. I want to know, like, every step of the way. All right, we're good on price. All right, we're good on commission. All right, we're good on marketing. Great, you feel like I'm a good negotiator. You know that I'm bringing value to the table. It's a lot easier to close when you've closed on all of those things already. Like, it's a much easier conversation, so you don't look stupid like, so what do you think? Like, I mean, that's not, I don't have to have that conversation. A lot of people do, but like, I don't have that conversation because at the point in time where I'm handing them a pen, they're ready. Like, they've already been closed, it makes sense for them. I'm also going to ask the question, and by the way, before I do get to this, what I start with, because I just jumped right into the material, but what I start with is always the same. I want to see a tour of their house. I want them to show me their home. And I say to them, I say, listen, you bought this home. There's nobody better in life than to teach me what a buyer would love about this home than you. You're the one. You bought it, you lived in it, what do you love about your house? Like, help me market your house better. And then just let them do on. Because one, they're going to give you good content. That's the stuff that I'm taking. Would you mind if I take notes? Like, I'm having that conversation. And then when they go through and say all these things about their house, like, I'm taking notes on it. Be like, awesome, that is a beautiful whatever. Like, just engage with it. Like, that's rapport building 101. And then the next thing that I'm doing is I say, okay, can we sit down? Awesome, let's sit down. So we sit down, we're having a conversation. What's the first thing that I go into that with them? What are your goals? What are you looking to accomplish? Because I can't fix a goal that I don't know. Like, if their goal is we don't care what we get price-wise, I have to sell yesterday because the feds are after me. Of course, they need to sell. But the point is like, they need to sell. Like, they don't care about top dollar. Some people are like, I need top dollar. I need to squeeze every last penny out of this house. This is my retirement. Blah, 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 blah. We've heard it all. But the point is like, ask them their goals. Ask them what they're looking to accomplish. Because if you don't have that, you're screwed. Like, you're not going to be able to speak to what they care about. What questions do you guys have for me? This is, by the way, I'm pushing this to you, but I would ask the seller this. I'd say, all right, like, listen, I went through kind of everything I wanted to show you. I'm hoping it makes sense. I know we went through each section. You said it made sense to me. But is there anything that I'm missing? What questions do you guys have? And then a lot of times there's certain questions that come up, and if they don't ask any questions, I say, well, listen, I know you met with a couple other brokers this week. Is there anything that another broker said to you that I did say that, because Coldwell, we're really large companies. We offer a lot of different things, and there are things that I haven't even talked about that we offer because I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything that you heard from somebody else that was compelling to you that you would want more information about from me? You'd be surprised when they tell you. Sometimes they'll be like, well, this other company offered a home warranty. Like, great, we offer those too. Like, the point is like, there's all different things that people use as selling points. I want to know what's triggered that mentally because I want to speak to it if I can. Very rarely have I ever come across something that, I'll tell you the one thing that people say to me sometimes that I've heard through the years that kind of puts you in a little bit of a weird spot is, well, this other company down the street is willing to pay for all of my stations. And it was $4,000. Like, well, now you have a decision to make. Like, and I think that decision is made in many instances. I don't like paying for staging up front because if they never sell a house, I'm out $4,000. So just be realistic. But companies do that. There's definitely people that do that.
You say that you mean fronting the money for staging, right?
No, I mean paying for staging.
Oh, just
fronting, paying, everything. Like, gone. So I don't like doing that personally, but like, listen, if you give me a house, a listing that is $1 million listing, and I know it's going to sell in 4 seconds, like, and I have a new listing on it at 6%, yeah, I'll pay for staging. Like, great. Like, where do we start? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's all the context of what you're doing. So let me ask you.
It's important to ask what kind of staging, because there are people out there that are doing their own staging from their garage.
Correct. There's plenty of people that do that. I can name a few. But that's the other thing. That's the other thing I was saying too. And like, listen, there are some people that they'll say like, we'll do staging, and what it really means is we'll do a staging consultation. You'll pay for staging. Like, so there's levels to that. It's clearly the case. And some of you, some people in here might do that. Like, where they say like, part of our value proposition, we'll actually, do a staging consultation for you. We'll pay for it. Like, you can come up with all different ways to give yourself an advantage, but that's a question that comes up. So I'll put it out to you. This is the time to rip me apart if you need to. Please.
What about for sellers who want to sell to you guys in our area? Maybe you spoke about selling community.
So I'm glad you asked me this question because I would have skipped this, and this is a really hot topic right now. A lot of people come to be nowadays and say, I have a seller that wants to sell but has nothing to buy. I get it. I'm going to flip it on those people. It doesn't always work. Like, nothing always works. But what I flip it on that is I'd say, listen, I know you want to move, and I know you want to take advantage of today's market. And this is not always the case, it depends on the individual, but I'm going to give you kind of a couple of lines of, of thought on this. You got to figure half the people in life are moving up, half the people are moving down. The people that are moving down, put your house on. Because what I would say is I would say, listen, it's all percentages. And if the market's up 10% and you're selling $1 million house, you just picked up $100,000 from the market. If the market's up 10% and you're buying a $500,000 house, it's going to cost you $50,000 more. So that's a $50,000 benefit to you today. You can wait to make that decision, but it's going to cost you a significant amount of money. Is that something you're okay with? So right off the bat, if they hear that line of thought and they're selling their big house on the hill, they may think differently about it. Just use the kind of the percentages to your advantage. Not everybody, because some people I have kids in the school district and I don't care how much money I'm making. It matters to keep them in the school district. I understand that there's circumstances for everything. But I would definitely speak to that for buying down. For people that are buying up, interest rates. I'd say listen, I don't know if you've been paying any attention to interest rates, but right now, interest rates are definitely rising. The Fed has already said that they're going to continue to rise. It's very clear that they look like it's going to trend in that direction. So you're buying a more expensive home. Every day that goes by as interest rates rise, you're further and further away from that house that you're your dream home. I know the market seems really hot right now, I get all that, but there's another piece to this, and this is what I would add into this. I'd say, can I also ask you a question? And they'd say, of course. And I'd say, listen, are you planning on using the proceeds from this house to buy your next home? Oh yeah, of course. So it's going to be a contingent purchase. You have to do that, correct? Yeah, we do. Well, I'm going to tell you this. I understand that it's really it kind of gets people nervous and anxious to take that leap and put your house on the market, knowing that you might not have that next house to buy. I understand that, but you're putting yourself in an impossible position. And I look at you and I say, well, here's the thing. In today's market, it's such an aggressive market that you're never ever going to get a house in a contingent situation. It's never going to happen. You're not going to win. So you're right now, you're waiting for that perfect house to buy. And you're doing everything to wait for that perfect house to buy. And the second that house comes on the market, you're not going to be able to buy it. So it doesn't make any sense. There are other strategies to take. I'll give you a couple of examples. A lease back, an extended closing date. Lease back's really smart for today's market because with rates rising, buyers want to lock in today with the understanding that they'll move in later. You could probably get, I'll tell you, my brother right now is engaged in a situation where we've been negotiating and the sellers did not want to move. They were in that situation. But it was, it's a $1 million+ house. And they came to me, my brother came to me and said, I really want to buy this. Interest rates are rising. This is the house I want, blah, blah, blah. And it was an off-market deal. And I said, lease them. That's the way we're going to do this. We'll give them a year. Give them a year of a lease back. Who cares? You guys don't have to move today. You can lock in on your rates today. It gives them a year to buy. That's an easy way to do it. It's just you do an extended close. Not extended close. Close quickly, extended lease back.